How about this one? I've been seeing a lot of people get sponsored by this one, Ground News. I've always been a bit iffy about it. I see they've got like CNN and other like American sites as like fucking like far left and shit. What are we talking about? That's some fucking basically nothing in America is left wing. Their fucking whole system's built on capitalism and destroying everything. Maybe that video's about this, maybe it's not. We'll see what they got
This
going
video
on.
sponsor, Ground News.
Ground News to sponsor this video.
Ground News.
Ground News is my favorite.
Ground News.
Ground News.
The Ground News.
Ground News.
Ground News.
Ground News.
Ground News. Ground News.
Ground News.
Ground News.
Ground News. Ground News.
Ground News. Ground News. Ground News.
Ground News.
So, if you have watched any kind of videos on YouTube covering business, finance, the economy, or current events, you have almost certainly had ground news drilled into your subconscious. For-profit news coverage has become increasingly partisan as media companies have figured.
Has anyone used Ground News? Leave a comment if you've used it and if you like it or how you feel about it, because I don't trust it.
out that
We'll
telling
find out
people
why.
what they want to hear makes way more money than doing real journalism. Ground News is apparently here to fix all that by highlighting journalistic biases, fact-checking misinformation, and alerting you when you might not be getting the whole story. That's the pitch anyway. And they are spending an ungodly amount of cash on influencers and traditional advertising to get the word out about it. Now, putting aside for a second that this money had to come from somewhere, the bigger problem is this whole platform is probably only gonna make things worse. For as long as events have been recorded and reported on, there is always
Let me try to pre-watch. Maybe what he's gonna say is, so like the problem that Ground News is supposedly fixing is, you only get news from one side of the thing depending on what you watch. So we're gonna tell you what the bias is so you can get news from both sides of the thing. But realistically, if you're a more left-wing person, why the fuck would you want to read some right-wing bullshit about, housing is bad, not because fucking my politician buddy who owns fucking 50 houses is owning 50 houses. It's bad because brown people. So, if you're left-wing, you're just going to read the sources that are left-wing. And if you're right-wing, you're going to fucking Fox News or whatever fuck
been
Alex
an
Jones
inherent
talk about.
bias to how that news is
Bullshit.
portrayed. Modern commercial media outlets are big businesses that have to keep their investors happy. And to keep their investors happy,
Hey yo, what a visual, Jesus.
they have to keep their advertisers happy. And to keep their advertisers happy,
Hey, me
they
for real.
need access to news
right?
sources. And to maintain access to their news sources, they can't really push too hard against established corporate interests. Important stories have been left on the editor's desk because it would make the wrong people upset for as long as journalism has existed. But you have probably noticed that it does kind of feel like it's getting worse. Today, depending on what news outlet you choose to watch or read, you might get a completely opposite interpretation of events.
Zelensky really screwed up.
President Trump is not just changing American foreign policy. He is reorienting America's moral compass.
A supposedly neutral platform like Ground News that aggregates these opposing opinions masquerading as news would be great if it worked. But there are a few problems with adding yet another filter between you and current events. And at the very least, before you spend $100 a year on yet another subscription, you should
$100 a year for some fucking dickhead to put a little label saying left, right, and it's probably fucking inaccurate. That's fucking crazy, bro. Jesus.
understand what those problems are. Number one is who it gets its money from. Number two is the oversimplified way it categorizes biases. Number three is the use of AI to further remove you from what is actually happening.
Oh my
Number
god.
four is
It's worse than I thought. $100 a year for some dickhead to separate it to the left, right. It's not even some dickhead. It's a fucking robot. It's a fucking robot that's hallucinating that there's goblins in the walls and shit. You seen that with fucking what was it? Fucking ChatGPT has been fucking hallucinating goblins into everyone's answers, so they had to update it. Fucking idiot.
All of the advertising they have been doing is not cheap. There is a reason you can't avoid their message, and that's because they are conservatively spending hundreds of thousands
they got
of
some
dollars
donors.
a month here on YouTube
Undisclosed
alone. And
donors.
that's on top of expenses like
Angel
hosting
investors.
their website, paying their staff, and renting their office. All of this costs a lot of money. And while
Do you see? Look at this chick. She is staring directly into the
of
camera.
expenses like hosting their website, paying their
Look at-
staff, and renting their
Ugh.
office.
Why is
All
she
of this
staring into my
costs a
soul?
lot
Holy
of money.
fuck.
And while today the company might
Sorry,
have a lot
distracted.
of subscribers,
Lock in.
it didn't start out like this. They are a private company, so financials and public records are scarce. But according to their own website, the company was backed by a handful of mission-aligned, independent individual investors with no ties to corporate media, big tech, or government affiliations. That sounds great, but it's almost so specific that it raises some red flags. If I was asking you to come and hang out with some new pals I just met, and I told you, don't worry, because they're a bunch of chill guys who have no ties to the KGB, the mob, or ivory poachers, that's not a great sign. Now, of course, that's a silly, speculative example, but all we have is speculation. Because for a company that's all about transparency of information,
Okay, I hope he has an actual example, because that's not fair. Like, what? It's not, okay, so he compared, oh, these are my friends. They don't sell drugs and aren't involved in the fucking, why do you say KGB, I guess? If you're a news website who is promising that you're not backed by big corporations and shit, mentioning that the investors aren't involved in big businesses and shit, it makes sense to mention. That's fucking stupid. That was a fucking dumb point. I don't know.
that's all they have ever said about the source of their founding capital. They have actually been questioned about these investors multiple times online before, and every time they respond with the exact same generic copy and paste from their About page. Realistically, most private equity and venture capitalists are not aligned with corporate media, big tech, or the government. But that doesn't mean they don't have their own objectives, which is primarily making a profit. Now, I actually reached out to Ground News for further clarification around how much money they raised from their investors, and what their background actually was, instead of just what it wasn't. But as of the time of releasing this video, I have not heard back from them. Now, they are a rapidly growing business with a lot going on, so not taking the time to respond to some random wannabe YouTuber is not a smoking gun by itself. But it should be a simple question with a simple answer for a company that is built on transparency. So, anyway, I had to do a little bit more digging. Ground
God,
News
these
is
fucking
actually the
edits are so fucking millennial coded. It's fucking been like 30 clips of The Office already. Jesus Christ, bro.
second business started by a holding company called Snapwise Incorporated. It was founded by siblings Harleen Kaur and Sukh Singh, and before reshaping global media, they worked for an impressive list of consulting companies, startups, and even NASA. The first company they founded was called UCIC, which was supposed to be like a real-time version of Google Street Views, but is now defunct. The point is that with their background in startups and management consulting, these non-affiliated investors are most likely just wealthy institutions or individuals that the founders had developed relationships with. It's also not immediately disqualifying, but it should also be noted that the founders of Ground News don't have a background in journalism. Realistically, they aren't building this company after decades of seeing the problems in the failing journalism industry. They are building it for the same reason they started their other company, because it's a trendy business that can raise cash. But again, every single issue that has been raised so far is...
So he just said that them mentioning that they're not backed by big media and stuff is bad, and now he's saying, They just said that they're not backed, but they didn't tell us who they are backed by. Oh, could they be backed by big media? Oh. And then the next sentence been like, they have no connection to big media, and this is also bad. I'm confused. I don't-
Easily be addressed with a little bit of transparency around their financials and their investors. As a brand that makes a big deal in all of their advertising about exposing who really owns the media companies you are getting your news from, their own vagueness about the same issue is ironic at best. But where their money is coming from is actually far from the biggest problem here. The bigger issue is who is not getting the money. Ground News works by scraping articles from thousands of different sources and then bringing together the bullet points on their website. The problem this creates is that most people won't go and read from those sources after they have seen the highlights, which means those media organizations are denied ad or subscription revenue from their work. Now, I know it's hard to feel bad for giant media companies, but remember, just a few months ago, Honey was exposed for being the biggest scam in YouTube history by stealing affiliate revenue of social media influencers. Now, I'm not calling Ground News a scam. In fact, I really want them to just tweak a few things to provide a much better service. But this revenue shifting is basically exactly the same thing as what Honey was doing. But I would argue that, as bad as they can be, news outlets need money more than influencers do. Part of the reason that journalism has become more polarized is that it's very hard to make money by just reporting the news these days. Real investigative journalism is slow and expensive, and most stories are not that interesting to most people. Making news that is more like reality television that occasionally recounts current events in a partisan way is far more engaging, and in the attention economy, engagement equals dollars. Ground News has clearly seen this problem, and they are capitalizing on it, but unfortunately with their current business model, they are most likely only making it worse. Now, like all good modern startups, Ground News has also introduced AI features to make digesting news.
I don't think comparing it to Honey makes sense. Honey, if you got an affiliate link, someone recommended a product, watch the video, you like the product, oh, I'm going to go buy it. You would click on the link, go to the webpage with their referral link, but then Honey would jump in and be like, oh, we're going to look for coupon codes. Oh, couldn't find any. And then suddenly it's now the Honey referral instead of the company that actually referred you to the product. And then they would steal the revenue from that. That, obviously, is horrible. Ground News, reading an article, shortening it, and transforming it into a more concise article with a label of left and right and shit like that. That it's a different product. It's like someone tweeting about something, or like writing a new article based on the comments of a different thing. Is it transformative enough? You could maybe argue not, but it's not fucking just 100% ripping it.
News even easier by taking articles from the left, right, and center and running them through a chatbot to give you some dot point summary of an issue. It is
that's
easier to read, but it makes it even less likely that Ground News users will engage with the actual news publishers, denying them revenue for their work. Now, the final point about the money is how much of it they are spending on advertising. You have probably seen more ads for Ground News than you have for any news site that actually publishes their own stories. And this is highly indicative of a company that is trying to grow at all costs. Anyway, this still isn't the biggest problem of all. The biggest problem is that the whole basis for this platform is a fundamental misunderstanding of what new bias really is. Yes, it's obvious that Breitbart News has more conservative reporting than Vox, but if you needed a website to tell you that, then you might have bigger problems. But the real issue is that categorizing entire media outlets using a simple left-wing, right-wing framework is, as the youth say, highly fucking regarded. It depends entirely on the topic, the time, and even the individual journalist writing the story. There are lots of outlets that tend to be more progressive on social issues and conservative economically. or progressive economically with more conservative opinions about certain divisive topics. Lumping them all on a single left-right spectrum glosses over a massive amount of nuance. Even if every article from a source like CNN or Russia Today was exactly the same. For example, Russia Today tends to be quite supportive of more progressive economic policy, but clearly on issues like the Ukraine war, it's, less forward-thinking. This also raises the question of exactly who gets to choose what center, left, or right actually means. Now, Ground News doesn't actually do this themselves. They outsource that to 3 different third-party agencies: Ad Fontes, All Sides, and Media Fact Check. Now, there are 3 problems with these organizations as
Yeah, this is the... I feel like the most of this video I think is kind of stupid, but this is the like actual problem of the thing. What do you mean by left and right? When I'm talking left and right, I'm thinking capitalism versus socialism. I'm not thinking like liberal versus conservative, you know? They're liberal versus conservative, both capitalist structures of society. One just doesn't hate women as much and minorities, but they're both still inherently against the worker and pro businesses and fucking capitalists exploiting labor to make profit.
it pertains to Ground News. The first problem is that most of their analysis is available to view for free on their own websites. So if you were just after someone to tell you what is left or right wing, you could save yourself an annual subscription. The second problem is that these organizations also highlight the areas where Ground News could take a step up in terms of credibility. For example, Ad Fontes Media has an extensive section about how their work is funded, going all the way back to the initial investors in the business. The third problem is that, despite all of that, they aren't exactly perfect themselves. This story, posted by Russia Today about why Snowden chose to stay in Russia, is apparently extremely reliable with no bias whatsoever, according to one of the sources that Ground uses for their own scoring. So yeah, Ground News is spending lots of money that they got from somewhere on advertising a service that you can get for free, and is probably not going to make you any more informed. Modern media is broken, but the solution is consuming less of it, not an app to compile more of it. But anyway, please subscribe, because from now on, you can just get the news you need to know, and you can't trust the daily
What do we think about that video? I don't know. It was kind of shit. I disagree with a lot of it. I think I like that, like the core problem of what's left and right, how do they classify it, all that, didn't really get addressed that much.